guys, Dandelion Song here. I was looking in Wikipedia and I noticed the very strange title of this article here, and I popped this into the gematria counter, and then I realized that the whole article is coded, so we can use this to understand what they're talking about. So first of all, let me show you why I think that this title is coded, because it has the 9-3 and the 3-9 in it, and we talked a lot about this day being coded everywhere, including having to do with the Hoover Dam. And just to mention that if this was a Julian date, that its Gregorian equivalent has not yet arrived. Also, we see a counting up number here with a 2-3 in it, and this 2-3 is the October 6th equivalent. And we do have October 6th in this article, of course. Also, we have the 555, and so I want to take a look at these things. So just scanning over the top of this, we can see that this storm, I do want to look at all these things. Hold on. Okay, so prior to 923 and the 911 times, I don't know how many times I found a 929 when I talked to you about that the 29 encodes the 911 all inside of it. And so it's not a mistake that, you know, we had a sacrifice on 911, we had a sacrifice on 923, and I think that 929 is just another permutation of this number. Now 106 is also 106 is another permutation of this number. So it dissipated on this day, but people haven't stopped dying, and I guess there are more flooding. There's more flooding to come as all the water moves out to the ocean. So my heart goes out to all these people. It looks like this was an engineered storm. I want to, before we get into this, I want to talk about the 1,000-year aspect of this. And let's see, they talk about it. Let me see if I find it in the article here. Because they say 1,000-year storm, 1,000-year storm, and I just studied something. I'm sorry, I don't know where it is. Okay, well, you know that they do. So let me show you something that I've learned. All right, well, I've been learning more Roman numeral code and some of these, and I learned this on the Illuminatus Observer website, trying to get through his blogs. So he talks about that the M, of course, the M is means 1,000 in Roman numbers, and that the word 1,000 means means thou, right? And sand. And so he points out that this is DNA. And I've always wondered about this, because I always decode this. There's the 1, the 14, and the 4, and so it has the 144,000 in it, and so I knew that this was a special couple of words here. And then of course you have the all-seeing eye here. Now, I do believe that originally the all-seeing eye was meant to be the true idea of the creator. It wasn't meant to be the Anunnaki, but the Anunnaki kind of infiltrated, or the Anunnaki royals, or I guess you could say the Zionists or the Jesuits infiltrated all the secret orders. So now we have a diversity of good and evil in them. There's probably diverse before. But now I forgot what I was going to say about this. But here, this is also the S, which is 19, and this is Ra, the number of Ra, and this signifies the snake in the chalice, or the serpent in the chalice. So here it's saying that the reason why 1,000 means so much, especially to ancient Rome, you know, this was probably the biggest number that they could kind of like squeeze into their brain conceptually. So it means countless or innumerable, like the sand. But it also talks about that, it also seems like it includes you are, that we are, and you would say that God is innumerable, everything, the all, something like that, and that would be their idea of innumerable, would be 1,000. So for them to call this 1,000-year storm kind of takes on a different meaning when you look when you look at these things. Now, in a lot of movies, almost every action movie that has destruction in it has a dust or a sand scene in it. And so the sand also, besides being innumerable, it also means the sands of time, like a sand, gosh, I can't think of the word for this thing, the sand clock. I remember my grandma used to watch this soap opera that had the sand clock on the top of it, on the front of it. I'm sorry, the word is gone. But the other thing about M that we need to know for this discussion is that M, really you could talk about M for an hour, just the letter M, and that it means 1,000 is very important. Well, M in the Roman numerals is 500, which equals 2D. And a D, of course, is 500. And I did a little video about this where I got halfway into it. So the M would be both halves, sorry, would be 2 of the D's. So it is, I would say, a phi reference, because this is phi. I don't see any of the phi numbers here, in any other place except for just symbolically and shape-wise. Okay, so also, if you take the V apart, the M apart, it turns into an IVI, which if you add these up separately equals a 7. But going this way, you would pronounce it Eve, if you pronounce the I's, because they, I didn't realize this, but the Illuminati do a lot of phonetic or similar sounding type of code, so I haven't really delved that much into it, but this is what that is. So that's Eve this way, and then if you you could read it backwards or forwards. This would be a 1, this would be a 4, because this is the 22nd letter, so that would collapse to a 4, and this would be a 1, which this would be Ada, so that would be Adam. So those are both coded, so it's the full circle of male and female. And of course D also symbolizes the duality, so here you have double D, right, in here. This let's see, I think that I have one more thing about this V right here. I've learned from ancient jewelry, studying ancient jewelry that has code in it, that this is also symbolic of the 144,000. It's a 144,000 mirror, because this angle, excuse my having to write really small, this angle is 14.4, and this angle is 14.4. And in some of the ancient artifacts of different tombs, like say Lord Pakal's tomb, he has 144 written on his head in mirror form. And he also has Venus and twin symbolism in his artifacts. So that is something else to keep in mind when you're learning about these letters. So for them to go over again and again, calling this the 1,000-year storm, it really calls in all of the symbolism, not only of this word, sand and thou, but of this letter. So they talk about flash flooding is one of the first things that they talk about here. And right away we see a 6-8 and this 311 number. Now, I've seen this number a lot, so I'm going to start to wonder if this is either a, if I think I have to go check the coordinates of the Hoover Dam. 110, 111, those numbers are right around over there, because I was just looking at the Hopi reservation today, believe it or not, and those numbers are around there. So it could be a meridian, or it could be a date, because this is also, as I've explained in most of my videos, this is one of their favorite dates in the forwards and the backwards. 11-3 would be the Freedom Tower dedication, 311 would be the Fukushima date. And if I had time to bring all those numbers in, I bet you we would have some matches. But in short, this matches the beast I bring that up because that's what Obama calls his car. And then it equals Adolf in the pineal gland in the simple and English gematria. So this is the simple and the English gematria for flood, just the word flood, and just to know that it equals hello, devil, earth, pope, heart, 6, abracadabra, and some other things. I don't know how. I mean, I guess it's all those ones. But it's interesting that the Pope is in there, of course. So right here next to these very interesting dates, they say that this is an extratropical cyclone or a nor'easter. So look at this, these 133 numbers. And these 133 numbers were also showing up in the video that I just did about nuclear explosion and electromagnetic pulse. And then also we have another 923. So also the 133 numbers show up in nuclear war. So let's look for, just go ahead and scan down here. Oh, okay. All right, so we need to pay attention to this is how close this date is to the 311 that we already just saw. And this equals the Holy Spirit and some other things. I've showed this before in another video, but just to review. And then in the Jewish gematria, this equals Judgment Day. One of the interesting things that I just remembered for this number, besides being the Tesla number, is that with the 1396, of course, those are the 4 directions on the clock. And since we did have clock stories this summer, or recently, I think we need to try and keep the idea of the clock in mind here. Another quick idea on this this 23-9 down here in extratropical cyclone is that if you add the 9 to the 23, you do get a 32. So then that number of 323 is Oregon in the Jewish gematria. So it could be that. Or it could be all of the above. You know, we did see a sacrifice on this day. So it just could be all of the above. So here in the maximum rainfall, it says there's basically an 888 or a 611. So the 611 would be like a 911 upside down, which would be like the same day. And then we have 23 again in the deaths. So I'm just going to take this whole phrase. Okay, well, it equals money in the Jewish gematria, and in the simple and English gematria, it equals Hebrew gematria. And I wonder if this means that we should, you know, do this. I never do Hebrew gematria, but maybe I should make an exception because of the 1, 2, 3 and the 3, 3 codes. We're seeing lots of 3, 3s, and we saw the 1, 2, 3 counting up, counting down with the Pope. The 266th episode of Simpsons, which has a 1, 2, 3, and 3, 2, 1, and that equates to the day of 923. And then Oregon, of course, has that coordinate. It's on that meridian. Also the Golden Gate Bridge, this equals that, the Thelemic Order, and I think they worship the number 93. Key of David, Bohemian Grove. I think this is spelled wrong, but I think it's really spelled wrong. I don't know if these 2 letters are inverted or not, but Wall Street does belong here, and then there's a 1, 2, 3 and a 3, 2, 1 here, and I think that's worth noting. So 135 and 810 really aren't numbers that I notice a lot, but I think it's because I don't understand them. I don't have enough associations, and so then when I see them, I maybe ignore them. It also equals alien microchip. Thelemic Order, just want to pay it. Since they worship the number 93. I just want to point out the double 9s and the 93 and the 39 here. So do you guys remember those videos, the warning videos about the movie, and I can't remember the name of the movie with that guy. Oh my gosh, Evan. I think it's Evan Almighty. Okay, yeah, got the name of the movie. So where he says over and over again, noon, September 22nd, noon, September 22nd. And then, okay, so that equals October 5th. Where are we? And October 3rd is when they started sandbagging. by October 3rd, here we have more 22 and 33 numbers. 22 million people were under flood warnings or watches. Okay, so here's the rain animation. So I just would look here for October 5th, which is the 922 equivalent, having to do with that Evan Almighty movie. So just because it was foreplayed so much before the actual date. So let's look. So there's the 2nd of October. It's like hard to see. It's right here. This is where the date is. There's the 3rd of October. Here comes the rain. Not quite yet though. There's the, looks like the 4th of October. Oops, I think it started over. So it looks like it's on, right here is on the 3rd. Looks like the main, they just got hosed. It got fire hosed on the 3rd. And then the 4th, they were just getting hosed a little bit. And a little bit more. Wow. All right. Anyway, those dates aren't perfect, but they do kind of line up. I just thought that was interesting that it does seem to overlap that when you add in that extra conversion. In the movie, though, it was a dam breach. I don't know if it was a levee breach. I think it was a dam breach that caused the flooding on October 5th. So that's kind of an interesting, whoops, lost my tab. Oh, there it is. So this is kind of an interesting note right here having to do with that movie. I don't know if anybody else is catching this. So I just need some drama, some dramatic music, and some replays from that movie. Oh ho! Okay, so here's we have a 3, 2, 1 and a 1, you know, which I would say is a 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1 in the category of Evan Almighty. It equals powerful. Wall Street. The Gematria Bible, Washington D.C. The Eye of Horus. All right, well, think big, think Baxter. This is a BB, this a little bit of a Barack Obama type of reference. Of course, you can kind of see that similarity in Change the World, sort of a kind of like a Yes We Can sort of thing. Change the World has a 1, 2, 3, 1. Here, this is the Oregon. This is the Oregon coordinate, and this showed up a lot in the Pope visit. So Evan Almighty equals Change the World in the Jewish Gematria. So this happens here at 36 seconds. We also know the Morgan Freeman story that happened on 8/16, which is the Bride of Christ number that we've been talking about again and again. So in the movie, they have a thing about Genesis 6. He sees 6:14s everywhere, 6:14s, and then he realizes it's Genesis 6:14, and that's 42. Well, the interesting tie to that is that you wouldn't get unless you did gematria, is that equals flood. All right. Well, I'm going to show you more about Evan Baxter here, but sorry, stammering. Okay, so Columbia got the most rainfall. The rest of it got a 500 year. Columbia got a 1,000 year. Columbia, let's look at the gematria, equals, there's a 76 and there's a 4, 5, 6, which is a counting up number, but it's also it's a 96. So this number is it's the opposite of the FR. And so this is what I call the GO number. The 96 is a GO number, or those who from the heavens came. It also has this in the Jewish gematria. Now this day, the 315th day, is November 11th, so that's an 11/11, and we know how they like their 11/11s, right? Okay, so here's on the 11/11 page. A quick aside, they must have some robot here on this page who's putting in these numbers over and over again and filling it up, so then it's going to take longer to scroll down. We need our own site, you guys. But anyway, at the top here we have Alex Jones, which would be at the 9:30 if you turn this upside down, and this would be the day now I forgot. Oh, this is the 922 day equivalent. And then this is the October 3rd, October 5th, and then here's the 6/18 with the twin flame. That kind of idea. Twins. All right, so back to the 6:1:14. Just for a second, show you this right here. So as long as we're talking about floods, it's important because most people don't realize that the flood story came from the Sumerian tablets, and this is the Sumerian tablet of the it's called the Babylonian Flood Tablet, and it's also the Epic of Gilgamesh. And I used to have a website that would show you basically taught you Sumerian. Not that we all have time to learn Sumerian, but just quickly here, the parallels with the Bible. Because Gilgamesh is the young king who seeks out his ancestor Utnapishtim. Now, Illuminatus Observer says that this name backwards is code. So it's possible that this story is also Freemason code. I mean, we have to always consider this. The central parallel of Gilgamesh with the Genesis flood is that the gods commanded man to build a boat with specific dimensions and fit the animals inside. After the flood, the boat rests on a mountain, and the window is open and 3 birds are released, 2 of which come back and the last one never returns. Bible skeptics were quick to argue that the existence of flood stories that predated Genesis in 1440 BC was proof that Genesis plagiarized the earlier accounts. It is, in fact, far more likely that the flood accounts that permeate every culture are proof of a global flood that everyone was aware of. The 500 flood stories that exist in every culture and geographic region on Earth is predictable. So I know this doesn't have a lot to do with our flood, but I just think it's a good point to bring up the Sumerian tablets. And let's see, there are numerous direct parallels in the Epic of Gilgamesh with stories, facts, and events in the Bible. While it is true that other flood stories like the Epic of Atrahasis, 1635 BC, and Eridu Genesis have details that predate Genesis, the Gilgamesh epic was written 300 years after Genesis. This may explain some of the parallels, like the period of plenty following the 7 periods of famine, Joseph, but not all. For example, the opening tablet parallels the theme of the book of Ecclesiastes and the all is vain and striving after wind theme. Yet this is not all that profound and unique, given most elderly people come to this conclusion on their own, that all is vain. Okay, about the twin. While the flood would have been considered a historical fact like the falling of the Twin Towers by Muslim terrorists, the factual details can quickly change. Today, nobody questions the Twin Towers fell, but immediately different people suggest that, sorry, I'm going to skip that part. This is what I want to get to, the mountains. So, there are 2 mountains named in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Mount Nemush, where the Ark rested, and Mount Mashu, where the flood survivor Utnapishtim lives. Mount Mashu literally means twin. And so Mount Mashu is the twin-peaked mountain. This is without a doubt Mount Ararat, the twin mountain where Utnapishtim lived. There is an amazing triple coincidence between the geography of the Twin Peaks, Mount Ararat, and the archaeology of the Shamash who dwells between the 2 peaks mountain in the Epic of Gilgamesh, since in Tablet 7 the story also refers to the Mashu Mountains. So not only does the name Mashu means twin, but Mashu is referred to in the plural. The complicating factor is that in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Ark does not rest on the twin-peaked mountains, Mount Mashu, but on Mount Nemush. To make matters worse, after the gods gave Utnapishtim his immortality while standing inside the Ark on Mount Nemush, he was told that he must live far away at the source of the 2 rivers, the headwaters. And we know from the video that I have just done recently, I think this last week, about the symbolism of the river and the mouth and how important these things are, and they must have been important to the Anunnaki gods. This is supposedly Shamash, although we cannot just take the website's word for it, because from my view of looking at a lot of these, Enki is the one who usually has these type of things coming off of him. So I'm not going to say that I'm right, but I'm just going to say that they might not be right either. Taken at face value, the twin mountain Mashu is far away from the mountain the Ark rested on. The 2 mountains are a great distance apart from one another, but the identification of the twin-peaked Mount Mashu with Mount Ararat is strengthened by 2 important factors. Mount Ararat is indeed near the headwaters of 2 rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. Secondly, from the archaeology, we know that the sun god Shamash lived between the two peaks of Mount Mashu, where Utnapishtim lived. Notice the written language symbols for Shamash in cuneiform, Chinese, and Egyptian all show a god living between two mountain peaks. So he would be the sun god, I guess. Interesting. And this is a little bit like the trident, right? So when we scroll down on this page, they actually have the direct translation here, which is very interesting. He who has seen everything I will make known to the lands. I will teach about him who has experienced all things alike. Anu granted him the totality, the knowledge of all. Anu is the father of Enki and Enlil. He was the Anunnaki god who stayed on Nibiru. He saw the secret and discovered the hidden. So I'll put this link in the description so that you can come and read this. You just have to scroll down a little bit. Okay, so I'm getting to where he talks about the date, but here's this part. Okay, so right there, that has a 923 in it. And that would convert to October 6th, which was right during this time. So his address in the movie was 614 Oak Street. Actually, I'm going to look that up again. But he lived in Huntsville, Virginia, and that has a 123, which this is what we're paying attention to right now in terms of the Oregon coordinate connection. So it's all foreshadowed right here with the dates. All right, so Alpha and Omega Hardware, here's the address, 614 Oakwood. I did look that up. It does have some strange gematria, 696s, and the 166, again, is the 911 equivalent. Means the peace symbol, Rothschild, Tony Blair, wedding bells. Here's the Huntsville, Virginia. That matches Hillary Rodham Clinton. Maybe that's what all these numbers are about. Maybe that's what all this that's what the Oregon thing was about. I don't know. Okay, here they say the weirdo with the beardo. And then let's look at that. It has a 1, 2, 3. It has a 3, 2, 1 in it, and a 2, 1, 3. All right. So just to reconfirm that he was talking in the movie about September 22nd, where a levee breaks, and then a levee did break on the October 5th, which is the Gregorian equivalent of that date. And right near Columbia. Now we did run those numbers already. So it says in the article here, 18 dams were breached or collapsed across the state. So I looked that up. That equals the Rockefeller number. This is a 9/11 number because the towers had 110 stories, and also they were financed by Rockefellers, who also have this number. In the Jewish gematria, it equals Muhammad, and then for Muhammad there is the Oregon connection, because this matches Oregon, and it matches Lucifer and English, which were all connections. And then Oregon, of course, is the 1, 2, 3 connection. In the Jewish gematria, it also equals Adolf A. Hitler. I don't know if that's the correct middle initial. Bilderberg. And in the simple in English, it also matches Adolf Hitler, Osama bin Laden, Christmas Apollyon, President, Rockefeller, Ronald Reagan, who has his Ronald Reagan. He also has the 923 in his name. Oh my goodness! So that would be the 923. Corresponds, of course, to October 6th, which is the 106 that was foreshadowed all summer, but especially starting off, most noticeably with the Philadelphia train wreck. But notably, Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. is shaped like a throne, which is the name of ISIS, and it's right there under her left arm. If you haven't seen my ISIS videos and my Google Earth videos, I have a lot of really interesting Google Earth videos that really show that something's going on, something that we need to understand. We need to understand why ISIS is drawn everywhere. So Osama bin Laden and I just noticed Ronald Reagan have different anagrams of the same number here, having to do with October 6th. or the 106. So we don't know. Maybe it's a meridian. Maybe there's some news right now while I'm studying this. Maybe there's some news that's happening on the 106 meridian, which I believe would be east of like Roseburg, or depending on where it is in the country. Well, that's the whole thing. I think we tied in a lot of numbers from this. I thought this movie was kind of done and gone with, but I think since it ties into Oregon, it's still valid. All right, talk to you guys later.